Good afternoon. Today I will talk to you about the analog chromogenic photograph, how it's made, and its value as artwork. There we go. Chromogenic photography uses light-sensitive silver halide paper and chemicals to create a color image. The principles of analog chromogenic printing involve exposing the paper to light, usually through a negative, which activates the light-sensitive emulsion on the paper. The emulsion is made up of up to 8 layers, 3 of which contain dye couplers that form cyan, magenta, and yellow dyes when they react with the oxidized developer. The chromogenic process was the most common analog color process of the 20th century. It was less labor-intensive than dye transfer process and was more common and less expensive than the silver dye bleach printing onto sebachrome. And perhaps these reasons contribute to its wide use amongst artists in the last 30 years of the 20th century. However, the color accuracy of chromogenic prints will deteriorate over time due to fading or color shifts caused by light or thermal aging. As a result, we see a magenta or sometimes greenish cast, often accompanied by a loss of contrast, appearing in the photograph. This fading can happen within a shorter period than most other artist materials can fade, and within the lifetime of the artist. Color shifts are the reason for the current trend of reprinting chromogenic artworks in collections. And with reprinting, I mean the making of a new photograph that then takes the place of the changed chromogenic photograph in the collection. Reprinting is initiated by the artist or sometimes the museum. It is usually performed by the digital means, using technology and materials that were not available at the time of the first printing. In principle, the revisiting of a negative by the photographer aligns with the nature of photography as a reproducible medium. Often the evolution of the photographer or artist's ideas can be seen in each new print. The problem with reprinting, as used in this context, is that the reprint actually replaces the earlier photograph. This earlier photograph is then either destroyed or retired to storage, not to be shown again. Oi. Maybe someone can help me here. I think the battery's dying. Let's see, here we go. Oh yeah, thank you. To illustrate this, here you see 2 images by Stephen Shore. Shore is one of the first artists to work in chromogenic photography and be collected in fine art institutions. For the past 10 years, Shore has been in dialogue with collections because he wants to reprint his analog prints, photographs from the 70s and 80s and replace them with modern, digitally printed photographs or inkjet. The image on the left is analog printed in 1975, and on the right, a digital print made by Shore in 2013. The analog print left is printed darker and warmer and captures the afternoon sun. The colors may have shifted a bit warmer than when first printed, but without magenta or green cast that I mentioned before. It still shows the color palette pretty much as it was when printed. The digital image on the right is sharpened and is printed with more subdued tones. The yellow is filtered out and almost completely and is replaced by magenta that makes the print appear more blue. It is softer, the shadows are less prominent, and the afternoon sun is nowhere to be seen. According to Shore's wishes, the right image would be replaced with one on the left. Within a collecting institution, I question the good practice of such a decision. In the rest of my presentation, I will discuss part of ongoing research in which I explore the question of image or object within museum collections Are we preserving the photograph as image or as material object? Within this context, I will show you a closer look at the fundamentals of the analog printed chromogenic artwork and through the knowledge gained by reading through photography magazines and interviewing professional printers, I will discuss the decisions that are made while printing in the darkroom. My aim is to shed light on darkroom practice, to provide insights to what this means for the resulting artwork, and to try and understand the value for the analog artwork in a digital age. I will conclude with thoughts on insights gained during the interviews and reflect on what is lost when replacing an analog print with a modern version. There are a number of steps involved in creating a chromogenic print in the darkroom. First, with a color negative, a photograph is taken with a camera. This is developed later. And here you see the 8 by 10 inch camera that Stephen Shore uses to make his photographs after 1973. Because the parameters of professional darkroom chromogenic printing are more exact than black and white, chemistry is more harmful to the health of the practitioner, and printing is performed in complete darkness. In black and white darkrooms, you have a red light or orange light. The artist usually works together with a professional printer. A contact sheet is printed to provide a first impression of the images. And when doing so, miniature prints are made by placing the negatives in contact with photographic paper and exposing and developing it. Here you see the resulting contact prints. Because negatives on one roll can be darker or lighter, several contact sheets are printed so that each photograph can be viewed optimally, because if not, they can affect the decision of the artist to print them. Once they know what image they want to print, the artist chooses the desired print size and paper. Here you see 4 different types of chromogenic papers with varying gloss. The upper left is the most matte, and the lower right has the highest gloss. The image I'm using here is from the SBMK sample set that we made within the SBMK photography project, of which this research is part of, and I have the website at the end. The printer then produces a neutral print in which only the information as seen in the negative is provided. This first print serves as the baseline for the dialogue with the artist and for all printing decisions made thereafter. And the arrow points to the first prints in the image on the screen. In the dialogue that follows, and the prints that are consequently made, the printer uses his expertise, tools, and skills to print the final photograph to capture the look that the artist intended when making the photograph. The arrows point to local changes printed into the second print. In each consequent test print, various factors are adjusted to refine the artist's vision. Specific details are highlighted and impactful compositions are created. Each iteration offers a chance to experiment, to learn from previous results and get closer to what the artist wants to communicate. In order to understand what decisions were made in the darkroom, magazines published between 1980 and 2000 were browsed for articles that provided insight into darkroom chromogenic practice. And contact was sought with analog chromogenic printers that printed and/or are still printing today. Initially, only Dutch printers were contacted, but my research has since broadened. Here you see the list of the labs and the retired printers that I have contacted so far, but my presentation today will discuss the outcomes of interviews with 5 Dutch printers. In preparation for the interview, the goal of the interview and a set of questions were sent to each printer. The Dutch interviews were held in person, and the method of interviewing them was ethnography-inspired. I visited the printer at the lab, saw the darkrooms, and when possible, watched while they print. Questions focused on the printer-client relationship, the workflow, printer's skill set and tools, and the steps taken to interpret the negative to the final artwork. We also discussed the printer's creative input, consistency across multiple prints, as for example in an artist edition, and the printer's general thoughts on the image and its qualities and/or uniqueness as artwork. The printer's background and personality influences the way they work for the artist. For example, one is more technical, as he has a diploma as a photographic lab technician. Another works intuitively or more intuitively and has perhaps the most intimate relationship with the prints that he makes for the artist. And yet another works most practically. He does not use some of the darkroom tools and skills that others do. All printers were photographers or artists themselves, or had graduated from art school before going into printing. All used diverse papers from both Kodak and Fuji for printing photographs, and now only Fuji is available, as it is the only manufacturer still producing chromogenic papers today. It became clear from the interviews that all printers possess a deep understanding of various darkroom processes, and I know how to manipulate these techniques to achieve the specific vision of the artist photographer. However, the extent of the manipulation depends on the printer-artist relationship, and the amount of time for printing, their tools, and their expertise. From the interviews, several key insights emerge. First of all, printers felt that the emotions, ideas, and motivations that move the artist to take the photograph are not necessarily present in the negative, and that they are awaiting to be interpreted during printing. They see it as their job to print the artist's vision. The printers express the importance of manipulating and reinterpreting the negative by making new versions with light. In doing so, the artistic intent is refined, and you just simply can't just make one print. The printers were clear, even though they bring their set of skills and tools to the table, they serve only the artist's idea. They leave their own ideas about how the negative should be printed out of printing. In other words, their profession dictates that they are subservient to the artist. This being said, one printer might offer opinions faster than another, much like a framer does when offering his opinions on which frame and window mat combination would work well for a particular artwork. All printers expressed that their contribution lie in dodging and burning, making of masks, and understanding their order to emphasize or diminish certain elements, directing the viewer's attention or enhancing the overall composition within the image. The expertise lies in the fact that they can selectively alter softness, exposure, hue, and contrast, overall or locally, to create a more balanced or dynamic image, providing further control over the final artistic outcome. They know when to color wash, which is first exposing the paper with a certain color to counteract the color cast in the negative. They can change the highlights to become warmer or cooler, or the image to be less green. And this controlled drawing with light that is illustrated here with a series of masks in the first three images that were used to print Jacqueline Hessing's Golden Room, shown on the right. All printers emphasize the importance of listening to the artist and the communication between the artist and the printer to understand what the artist's idea is about the image on the negative. To illustrate the darkroom journey and the communication of the artist's ideas, I would like to cite Joel Merowitz, who gave an interview in the American Photographer in 1987. And I quote, "I don't jump to photograph something because of its color. I photograph it because I'm interested in the presence of the whole thing. I don't want the color to wear the person." Here you can see a progression from the first contact print to the final print on the right. During printing, the exposure time, yellow and magenta color filtration was tweaked, and dodging and burning were performed. While printers agree that reevaluating until the desired end result is achieved is an important step, They had different ideas about the number of prints that they would make for one image. This was depending on the printer, anywhere from 3 to 8 prints. If price is no obstacle, or if the artist pays a day rate, all agreed that more versions are made. So this means that finances can influence the final outcome of the artwork. All printers agreed that the selection of chromogenic materials and finishing materials plays a crucial role. As seen here, different papers have different base colors, levels of glossiness, contrast, textures, color saturation, and color reproduction capabilities, which can influence their overall aesthetic and feel of the artwork. The printer knows the color characterizations of each paper and how it's influenced. He understands the effects of print size and the effects of light and the filters on the chosen paper. When to print with RGB, red, green, blue, or with CMY, cyan, magenta, or yellow, and when to filter only locally. He can manipulate these characteristics to enhance certain elements of the artwork and influence viewer engagement. Before I go on, I want to show you the effects of contrast, color saturation, and color temperature on the image. I will show you the image and then a detail of those images so you can see how the image and the details are affected. So here we go. Here you have contrast, and the print on the left is going to be more contrast, right, than rich than the one on the right. Here you see there are details, color saturation, and color temperature. To illustrate the importance of paper and finishing for an artwork, I direct your attention to these two images from Celine from Balen. She chose Fujiflex material to print her photographs for the series. Fujiflex has an ultra-high gloss, as you can see from the image on the left. Each photograph in the series was finished with a matte laminate, as can be seen in the image at the right. The choice to use a glossy paper and then cover it with a matte laminate might seem conflicting. However, the theory that von Baal had behind the combination is that light travels through the laminate, reflects back as it hits the high gloss surface, and then bounces all around between the image and laminate to attain extra depth and luminescence. The interviews brought clarity regarding the printing process in which the interpretation of the negative is the focus. Printers using their tools of techniques and skills to bring the photographer-artist idea of the image to life. When asked how often they use their skills and tools to manipulate the negative to achieve the final result, all answered that it was more than 95% of the time and that always at least some dodging and burning is necessary. The significance of the printing process is further emphasized by the materials, chemistry, techniques employed. Finishing techniques such as mounting, face mounting, laminating, and framing play a vital role in how the viewer perceives and engages with the artwork. All printers mention definite trends in photography regarding size, printing, and finishing technique, and that these trends change and give way to new developments. All printers agreed that the materials, chemistry and tools available to him, the choice he has in using them, and the juggling of these in a particular order makes each photograph a unique object. When reflecting on what the value is of the analog printed chromogenic photograph, I think the value lies in the fact that at a set time there is a vision, an idea of the artwork to be made by the artist. From what I understand, it is rarely captured in the negative. The artwork is made through the artist-printer relationship, which is unique, through their communication and understanding, the technology and materials chosen, unique to that time, and the tacit knowledge, choices, and actions taken by the printer in the darkroom. These actions are undocumented. And von Balen's example mentioned before illustrates clearly the importance of understanding materials and ideas about them for the preservation of the artwork made in a certain time. Furthermore, the value of the analog chromogenic artwork lies in the fact that 30 or 40 years later, we cannot make the same artwork. This is not only because each analog photograph is unique, but because the negative, after so many years, has changed. Materials are no longer available, and the darkroom interpretation is lost when the negative is digitized. Additionally, the artist has evolved in his idea and vision. He is influenced by the age he is now living in, by his past and his past experiences. He is influenced by the technology and the materials available to him. By considering the intrinsic value of the chromogenic analog photograph, a deeper appreciation for the physical artwork can be gained. An awareness of the historical context of the material and technology is developed, and trends in photography's history can be recognized. These provide a historic framework that dates the artwork at the moment of conception within a particular time in history. In conclusion, I believe that it is crucial that we understand and acknowledge the intrinsic value of the analog chromogenic photograph, and that we preserve the physical elements of analog chromogenic printing for future generations so that they can fully appreciate the artistry and meaning captured within each analog artwork, especially as we continue in our digital path. And yes, the photographs will change, and the best preserved copies may be valued the most, and so is the importance of our role as conservator highlighted. By all means, revisit the negative and use the evolved artistic vision to print a new photograph. And let it be just that, a new photograph. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara, for this fascinating talk. Do we have any questions? I see one in the front there.
Christa Hoffmann, Vienna. I'd be interested if you also discuss these issues with the photographers or artists, how they approach it. Yeah.
This is my second, and then my next research. I did talk to at length with Stephen Shore, and he's also in my contribution, and a big thank you that he was willing to talk to me about all of his ideas. And he says, you know, I want, as an artist, I see what's possible now, and I want to use all these new modern things. And that's where I think the conflict arises. The photographs are now in the collections, and it's our, yeah, we're charged with their preservation, and how are we going to do that, huh? Image or object, yeah.
I have one question as well. Do you know what's the current practice, for example, in the Netherlands in the museums?
You know, I mentioned that there's a trend in this, and it's been going on internationally for, I mean, at least 10 years, I think. And in the Netherlands, people or museums do it on a one-to-one basis. Very, you know, it's very thoughtfully developed, and the discussions are done, and so forth. So, you know, there isn't one wave or one trend exactly, or when to do it, when not to do it.
Sure.
Yeah.